To order. For the roll call, all members are present with Lee Dudley in by phone. You still there, Lee?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. First on the agenda is approval of minutes for the May 5th meeting. Motion or corrections?
Make a motion to approve. Second.
If there are no corrections, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
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 Abstain. I was absent, so.
Okay. So the minutes are approved 6-1. We do not have any old business on the agenda. The new business is discussion of possible recommended actions on the development of State Route 89 utility project to the town council. Since this is the wrap-up, we need to make sure that you only speak when you have the floor, so we only have one person at a time because there's a lot to get through. We've got a short presentation from Joe Duffy. Can you explain these handouts? He's going to explain the handouts. It breaks down some costs that we didn't have hard. That will give us a better idea before we start deliberating on this. Once we do that, then we will take comments from each committee member and proceed as necessary from that point. Joe, if you would.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, we didn't, basically I'll just start with your handout and just go page by page. The first graph really gives us our total monthly cost scenario for each of the three scenarios that we're sort of looking at. And one's the do-nothing scenario, which takes the total cost, currently your total water and sewer bill for the average customer using 7,500 gallons per month, that's what this is based on, runs from $94.79 to $122.45. So the do-nothing scenario leaves us with the highest cost per customer for the Chino Valley customer, the average Chino Valley customer. Now, the revenue bond scenario starts off exactly the same. The only difference is its rate only climbs to $116.69. And that's really just because our Dan Jackson with economist.com calculated that we don't need quite the revenue if we do the revenue bond and acquire the Prescott water system, because we're still adding more customers, so those new customers are going to offset the amount of increase over the years. But remember, even under that scenario, it's going to be until 18 or 19 before we even break even, so it provides us no capital, no nothing. And then, of course, the GO bond scenario is a scenario where the rates stay flat for 5 years, and they're currently, I got it $104.79, and that includes the $10 per month property tax that the average $100,000 home would have on it. So that's why it's $10 more. And then so the net rate, their net cost out of pocket is $104.79. That'll stay flat for 5 years. The next two pages, and I'll just do the one, basically are going to compare the do-nothing scenario. Yes.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you really quick? The 104.79, is that with the savings that we would have by owning everything already too? Because the water's going to go down.
No, it doesn't impute the savings. It just says, here's your water
He's
sewer
going to get to
rate
that in a minute.
Okay,
plus the $10 of property tax.
so it's actually going to be lower than 104.79.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, the next two charts answer that question.
Okay. Dang it. Sorry.
We did analysis on the do-nothing versus the GO bond scenario, and then the next page is the GO bond versus the revenue bond scenario. So what we did is we looked at the Chino Valley water and sewer customers at the top of each of these, and the Prescott water customers on the bottom. Okay, so we assume the same 7,500 gallons per user per month. But what we did is we looked at the $50,000 assessed value, $100,000 assessed value, and $150,000 assessed value. So just on the first chart, if we do a GO bond, and we looked at 2014 where the rates would be now, but then we also went out to 2018 where the rates are going to be if we continue with our rate increases. So on the first scenario with the Chino Valley water and sewer customers, With the GO bond, they'll be at $100, and they're going to pay $5 for the GO bond and then the 36 and 58 water and sewer bill. If we do nothing, that rates their water and sewer bill only going to be $95. So they actually, it's going to cost them $5 a month this year if we do the water, or the first year. But over time, and if you go to the 2018 column, because our rates are increasing, it's actually, by doing nothing, it's still going to cost them $19 more a month. Because the GO bond, or actually it's going to save them $19 a month. The GO bond, they'll pay $100, but by doing nothing and the rates increasing, they're going to pay $119. So they're actually going to have a savings of $19 a month. And that continues whether it's $100,000 or $150,000. The only difference there is they're going to pay a little bit more in property tax. We did the same thing with the Prescott water system, and they're pretty much Prescott water customers pretty much save money almost at the do nothing scenario. They actually don't, but on the general obligation bond and the revenue bond, they both save money. So that's how this analysis worked on the next 2 pages. Is that clear? Okay. The 4th page is we just did a little scenario. It's the colored one. Looks about like this. Yeah, the ones we passed out, we accidentally printed a whole bunch of black and white ones. So, but this compares the do nothing scenario, the revenue bond, and the GO bond scenario. And we looked at what the water and sewer rates would be for just a $100,000 assessed residential customer with 3/4 inch meter. These are the numbers we've been looking at all around. Plus, we also said, what about a $250,000 commercial customer? What would they pay per month with a 1.5 inch meter using 50,000 gallons per month? We really didn't have any comparable customers to, we're looking maybe like at a fast food joint, like a Sonic or a Taco Bell. Unfortunately, they're not on our water system, so I have no history. I don't really know where they're at. So we said, well, let's just say 50,000 gallons. Pretty heavy water user. And so we made those comparisons on a monthly basis between water and sewer, residential, and commercial. But we also added in what the hookup fees would be. And so under all scenarios, a hookup fee for water for residential is $4,000 and it's $6,000 for sewer. But for a 1.5 inch meter, it's $13,433 for water for a commercial user and $6,000 for sewer. Now, these are 2 of the fees that we're discussing, we'll have to take to council, and we're going to discuss the option and do the analysis of whether we can afford to absorb these fees maybe in the GO bond area where we actually do the work. The staff has not presented to council. We don't know how they feel about it, but this is one of the things that we should consider talking about. And then, of course, we also put an amount in for the septic tank abandonment, and Ron Gritman gave us an estimate based on what he's seen out in the field. What we're paying now, anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000 to abandon a septic tank. So this lays out those costs, and the water and sewer hookup fees, we can amortize those over 10 years at 4% interest, and I calculated the monthly rate for those under each of the different scenarios all the way across. And that's already on the books, and council's approved that, so we can do that. Septic tank abandonment, we haven't done that yet, so.
So that's something that council could look at to
Could consider.
waive or amortize or whatever.
Right. And we just have to do the analysis and see how much of that impact would be in the specific area that we're doing. The next page, what I did is I actually went out, checked the assessed value of commercial businesses that you all are aware of and see every day, and calculated what their tax effect, both annual and monthly, would be with a GO bond, under the GO bond scenario. So that'll give you an idea what everybody's paying, everybody from Alco to Safeway to Days Inn and National Bank, all up and down the road. So I just picked every business that, just dropping 1 or 2 about every mile. So give you that information. We did 2 more charts, the ones that look about like this in your scenario. We looked at and what I did is I just sorted the assessed value of each of the different subdivisions by their assessed value, and we just charted it out so that you can get an idea where you are by subdivision within that area. So, and if you're not in a subdivision, basically you could go look at the county website and see what your assessed value is and pretty much figure out, exactly how you fall within those subdivisions. And did the same chart for how much the monthly tax amount will be for the GO bond for each of those subdivisions. So it's the exact same order, but we just charted out the data of what the monthly payment will be. Anywhere from Chino Meadows 1, I think it was like $257, all the way up to Fire Sky Ranch was a little bit over $18 per month on their bill. The next chart I included in your packet was a utility bill calculation just for a commercial customer. And this is actually what I used on my previous graph, but I went ahead and showed it to you just to remind the committee that you can see the effect of our rate increases. And as you can see, the water rates don't really increase that much, only about $30-some over from now until 2018. It's the sewer rates that go up quite a bit, from 193 to 262. And that is the same percentage that the residential rates are going up also. Chino Valley has a tiered rate, so the more water you use, the more you pay. And our highest rate is once you break that 20,000 gallons per month limit, then you're up to $7.32 now, and we're going to be going up to $8 per thousand in the future. So, and that's really to encourage conservation on it. And then, just for your information, I included resolution number 13-1005, which has all of our water and sewer rates up through January of 17. And so what I did here is when you see 2018, I'm figuring from 17, fiscal year 17-18, that's what the rates will be at that time. We won't see another rate increase until fiscal year 18-19 on it. So is that satisfactory, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, question?
Okay.
Robert?
Well, actually a statement. I called over to the utilities department today to get clarification on the water rates because I'm not really understanding. I understand more of what's going on now because you're actually charging, $4.18 for 1,000 gallons of water, right?
That's correct.
Well, when you call over there, they tell you you're charging $4.18 for 8,000 gallons of water. So they gave me a base rate of $9.31. I thought, that's not right.
No, it's,
So,
that's
I
per
mean,
1,000 gallons.
Somebody needs to clarify that information over there, so, if somebody that's looking to come into town gets that information, and then all of a sudden they get a bill for $50, they are going to scream.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do that, but it is per 1,000.
Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Town Manager?
I just wanted to make two quick comments that I thought might be helpful for the graphics. On the fourth page that looks like this, mine's in black and white, but yours is in color on this page.
You mean the third page?
The fourth page, I'm sorry.
With the red, yellow, and green at the top.
Yeah.
If, in order to help clarify the comparisons across the board, if council entertains a waiver of the connection and abandonment fees for water and sewer in the septic field, this bottom row of colored numbers is the comparison of the do-nothing versus the GO bond versus the revenue bond. And I just wanted, if you're able to eliminate and waive those connection fees, this gives you a clear notion of what those charges are going to be across the board. It helps with the notion of comparison. The other thing I wanted to call to the committee's attention, Jan Mazie has produced another wonderful map for us. Oh, there's Jan now. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Bad boy.
I know, it's been a long week, right? Jan created a really nice map for us over there. It shows all of the comparative neighborhoods that are in this document, and it shows their bottom line savings at the end of the month. And so that the numbers in that are based on the assumption that there's no connection fees or abandonment fees involved in this. This is just a flat out, what do you pay every month for service, and how does that compare to what you're paying now and what you'll be paying in the future?
And that schedule is based on the average assessed value within that subdivision. And these are only the subdivisions that have water and sewer or Prescott water users in them. Any other subdivisions that do not are not included on it, so.
That's not new? That's not new hookups?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No, we just
Existing.
took the existing.
Existing.
Yeah, the existing counts that we had acquired, including Prescott water.
Okay, now, I have a question for Robert. Talk to me about this waiving the ban for the sewer and, you know, the water hookup. Is this at the time, is it our problem to do this, or is this council that has to decide?
Well, you certainly have the ability to make a recommendation.
Okay,
Council can consider to do that within the general obligation bond project area. You know, there's going to be a defined project area with a defined number of properties that are affected by the project. And so for the water and sewer extension on 89, where we're putting new pipe in the ground, council could entertain the thought that we're gonna take money out of the taxpayer's pocket to put pipe in the ground. Does it make sense to take money out of the taxpayer's pocket to hook them up when they're already paying a tax to pay for the system?
now, is my understanding that they are going, if they put water to, say, your property line, you do not have to hook up to it if you have a well?
Well, that's something that council needs to consider. Most communities, when they install infrastructure within a certain amount of feet of your property, require you to connect. And our policy in Chino Valley is if we are within 400 feet of your septic system, you will connect to sewer. And if we're within 400 feet, I think, is it of your house or property?
I would imagine it'd be a property line, wouldn't
I believe that's the case. And that's this map here in the middle that shows all of the properties that have existing structures on them that would be required to have a connection.
Under the current code, commercial properties are required to tie into both water and sewer if you're within the 400 foot. Residential, only for sewer. So if you're commercial, it's both.
it? Okay,
That's your question?
thank you.
Anything else?
I just feel that that's an awful lot of burden to put on us as the taxpayer for not charging for having abandonment, some kind of cost.
I'm not sure which way you're going, Bob.
If the sewer is to your property and you have to abandon your septic, and now you're saying, you're telling us that that's up to the council whether they vote to or not to do, to abandon the sewer, whose cost is that?
Well, if the council voted to waive those connection and abandonment fees, they would be covered by the bond itself. And the goal of the bond is to create a larger system as fast as we can. So the bond financially, we believe, could take that stress,
You take that hit on it?
and that you could actually increase your customer count significantly quickly by putting the infrastructure in where a lot of existing businesses already are and have them connect on, but not have them pay the connection fee and abandonment fee.
Well, I have a little problem with that because I think in the long run, it's gonna cost the taxpayers money.
Well, the amount that the bond is stated at now is the amount. There wouldn't be additional monies. We believe the bond as it stands would cover that. And this would be a one-shot deal. I mean, you're creating a project area, you're gonna do a project, and the people that connect on at the inception of the project, council could stipulate that, you know, we're gonna waive the fee while we're putting the pipe in the ground and hooking people up. But if you wait after we're all done and you want it 5 years from now, you know, that's not gonna fly.
Or the new business coming in?
Right, there's a lot of ways that council could entertain that idea and come up with a fair solution that would serve the goals of the GO bond.
So this $6,000 to hook the sewer and $4,000 for water is not set in concrete.
Right now, that is our connection fee, and it is what we have been charging new customers.
Okay.
And they have been amortized, well, not all of them, but a lot of them amortize it over 10 years.
Okay.
Lee, did you have anything? You still there, Lee?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you have anything for Joe?
No, the thing is, it's got to get started, and the only way it's gonna get started is by us doing what we're doing to pass this on to council. If someone has a problem with the hookup fees in our town, they're gonna have that same problem in any town, so it doesn't matter where they go, if they think they're going to have a problem with it. That's just part of business.
Good for now, Lee?
That's all I have to say about it.
All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. It just seems like we're adding more of a burden to the cost of the project by eliminating fees. The sewer and water have never held their own. The town has always been forced to supplement that. So it seems to me by eliminating fees, we're perpetrating bad habits. I think anybody that is in the loop, if it gets to that point and they need to hook up, they need to pay their fair share to hook up. You're asking the entire town to supplement these people yet again, where we've been supplementing them for years. And I believe that's unfair to the bulk of the citizens.
That's kind of what I was saying.
Anybody?
Now, I have a question. Maybe Joe, you might know the answer. If not, maybe Ron would know the answer to this one. You know, we've been talking about 650 homes in the Prescott water system joining in to the system here. And by being bought out, that's what we're talking about doing, plus 100 homes in the Wilhoit. Now, the presentation a couple times by different individuals, the poorest of the poor has been quoted, you know, because of the Chino Metals Unit 1 out there. But now, how many people actually are on the water in Chino Metals 1 of that 650? Because there's 6 different subdivisions plus individual houses throughout town that are on Prescott water, ranging from some decent end subdivision to some low-end subdivisions.
Mr. Grimmon knows the exact number.
Not exact.
Smack him one.
It's right around 300 customers in Chino Metals
300,
Unit
so there'd
1.
be about 350 that aren't on.
Yeah,
Okay, so.
it's about 300 of them in Chino Metals
Okay.
Unit 1.
The hookup expenses fees that you're going with here, the 4,000 and the 6,000, that was created though through the agreement with FAN, correct?
I don't think that that's how that was created. And Ron, I think, can speak to the history of that.
Or,
Just stay up there.
I guess what,
I'm losing weight walking.
let me finish that question. What would actually the physical cost be to hook up businesses to the sewer and the water?
In most cities, the buy-in fee prior to this 2013, to the current resolution that you have, ordinance that created the new buy-in, or the new rate structure. Prior to that, the buy-in fees, we had a bifurcated buy-in fee. If you were defined as an existing home, and existing was defined through an actual resolution that kind of clarified some of the Chino Meadows stuff. An existing home was August 23rd? August 23rd, 2004 was, if you were a home prior to that, you were considered existing. Your buy-in fee was just under $1,900, $1,893, something like that. $1,683 under the old one, okay. If you were a home or a commercial property built after that, the buy-in fee was just under $5,000, like $4,900, so $46.91, I can't read that number, $46.91. In most cities, I mean, I've been the utilities engineer for City of Flagstaff for a number of years. I was the city engineer down in Apache Junction, utilities engineer up in Beaverton, Oregon. most utility systems, the buy-in fees are a function of the cost of putting the pipe in the ground in front of the business, in front of anything. So it's a function of the lineal footage that goes into it. But most cities have a standard, just a dollar figure. And that dollar figure pays for both the pipe in the ground and your capacity that you're taking up in either the wastewater treatment plant or the water production facilities, whichever one, whether it's a water or sewer buy-in fee. As near as I can tell, going through past records, talking to past people who were here when all of this stuff took place in '04 and '05, Chino Valley's original buy-in fees were more based off of things that that you don't normally include in a buy-in fee. They weren't based off of construction costs. They weren't based off of price, cost of capacity in the plants and so on. So when Mr. Jackson started his last analysis, and even the one that was done in '09 that was never really acted on, we believe that the two buy-in fees that we have created now are a function of recouping the vast majority of those costs of the lineal footage of the project. We in fact included those based off of approximately 300 foot of frontage, which is about what an acre of land creates, give or take. It's just approximate. And that's what those buy-in fees are now based off of. So the logic in the whole thing is a property owner, Mr. Mazie out there, is paying through his property tax already the cost of putting the pipe in the ground, because that's what the project is. So the logic is that since he's already paying for that it's already covering the cost of the ground, of the pipe in the ground. Now, granted, it's subsidized by Mr. Edmonds up there paying his share because he's not going to get tied to the system through this whole project. But the logic is that you're almost taxing him twice by forcing him to pay the buy-in fee plus his property tax. So that's kind of the logic in the whole thing. And I don't know if that answered your question directly or what.
What I'm thinking is, as far as, again, this the existing versus new.
We have done
Now,
away
if
with,
you can have two different rates.
No, there is, no. Under this last rate analysis, it's all one rate. There is no longer an existing versus new. It wasn't, in the FAN contract, the notion of existing versus new was created. In this last ordinance that the council did away with, that is gone. It's all one rate, whether doesn't matter. It's 4,000 water, 6,000 sewer, regardless.
Because I would look at it your way, that the tax that everybody would be paying, that brings the water and the sewer, say, down the street. Now, it's up to you to pay for the connection to it.
Right.
Now, if I'm somebody that's looking at locating a business here, I would then be looking at paying, I'm new construction, it's going to cost me X amount to buy in.
That's why they're called buy-in fees,
Which,
yes.
because now I have not been part of paying for that line in front. So
Well, no, the property tax assessment occurs whether you're tied into the system or not. So that commercial property would have been paying taxes in accordance with the rates that you were
Sure.
estimating here, regardless of whether you're tied in or not.
I'll put it this way. We're going to force people to tie into it one way. The person that chooses to move here and start a business, it's his choice whether he decides to move here or not. So therefore, I think having a dual rate, one for the existing people that are here, that are forced to move into it, that they pay a strictly a cost, what exactly the physical cost to do that is, and then a second rate for the person that chooses to move to Chino Valley and then says, here is your fee, you're going to be paying more than the ones that have been forced into it.
In order to do that, we would have to go back and contract with Mr. Jackson again in order to create an analysis based off of, again, going back to a bifurcated buy-in fee. And as I said, with this last resolution, we did away with the last one. They're trying to determine impact based off of new versus existing is a very difficult thing to try to quantify, because an existing home still has the same impact on the water system and the sewer system as a new home does. Your impacts are the exact same. You're still paying for that cost of the pipe in the ground, plus you're paying for X capacity in the plant. To try to create a subsidy, if you will, and go back to that would require a whole nother analysis. And I just, having gotten rid of one, it's a very difficult thing to try to go back and quantify.
Can you get Robert real quick?
And Chair Warren, thank you. I think it's helpful, too, to take one step back and look at the purpose of the GO bond, especially as it relates to the extension of water and sewer. The reason why the water and sewer extension exists in the GO bond is to grow more economic development in the community quickly, so that those sales taxes flow and provide the cash flow necessary to take care of the roads and the capital expenditures here in town. And if you are able to, across the board, without changing the amount of the GO bond, keeping it at the $13.5 million, if you are able to relieve those connection fees, those upfront fees that separate the vacant landowner from service and that separate the existing business owner from service, if there's a way for the GO bond to make those go away, so that connecting to the system and generating more tax dollars for the community happens faster, that catalyst there drives more development and more tax dollars into the community sooner.
And you say that's by waiving them to begin with.
That's right, and that's the reason why staff wants to put this in front of the council for them to deliberate. Now, we can run numbers all day long, but we are not a representative of the different communities out there. We don't know politically what's best for the town, but we want to give council the most powerful set of numbers to analyze and run through that we can. And so that's the reason why staff brought that up. That's the reason why it's in front of you guys. We think it can be done without increasing the bond, and if you can put that kind of grease on the economic development project, we think that you'll wind up with much more development faster.
Will that be setting precedent for future expansions? Because
I
we
think
will have future expansion.
You will, but I don't think
because
you
it does
will.
then benefit the town.
You'll have expansion, but I don't think that you'll have bonded expansion. I think once you've reset the utilities so they stand on their own and they're creating their own capital funds, they will be funding their own expansions on their own without going to the public and saying we want another property tax. And so this would be...
Would that include hookups?
Yes, future ones. If we were to start producing a capital improvement program and we're doing $500,000 in new extensions in years 18, 19, 20, and so on, yeah, everybody associated with that, because that's all pipe put in the ground through operating expenses, through capital. And all those folks would pay the normal buy-in fees, the $4,000 and the $6,000.
The only waiver we've been talking about is what's in the map of the GO bond project. And it's easy to define it because, we can create a routing map and we can have a list of all the properties involved. And then it's easy to define it on the financial side because there's a specific dollar amount. There's a specific amount of time to get it paid by the public. It's all one package. There's no leakage. You're not setting a precedent for other people to come forward and say, we want this too.
It is the colored area in that map right there. That is what we're defining as the benefited area, if you will. So.
Yeah, I'm just looking down the road as well as, if you waive the fees for the people affected immediately, is that going to be something that can carry?
No.
Is it going to be self-sufficient enough that you can afford to, when you start going into residential areas with the sewer and water, are they then going to be able to just get hooked right up? Or are they then going to get hit with the $4,000 and the $6,000?
They'll get hit with the $4,000 and the $6,000.
Hang on just a second. Go ahead.
Okay, what my basic question is when you were first presenting your presentation, Robert, the main reason for all these fees and everything like that was to grow the capital improvement fund so that we can get the roads fixed and get a bunch of other stuff. So if we start waiving the fees, then that's going to put that way down the road even further than before, because if you figure you got, X amount of dollars coming in, and that was figured in the 135 miles of road you had to fix, then that's going to be short. And the other point would be, rather than waiving the fees, go ahead and require the commercial to hook up, which is the main purpose of putting this in, is to get it to the commercial, and then set for like the residents and saying, okay, you don't have to hook up right now that you're going by, but when your septics or whatever fail, then you have to hook up, and they have to pay the fee at that time.
I hear what you're saying, because when you don't charge a fee for that property owner, that's money you're not getting from that property owner. However, the town of Chino Valley amortizes that out over 10 years, and so it's spread across 120 months. So we don't get it all at once. It's spread out over a significant period of time. And what we're saying is, don't charge the private property owner that connection fee and then spread it out over 120 months. Pay for it with the bond issue. The money is still there. The money still is present for the town to be able to construct those connections and deal with funding the buy-in. It's just, it doesn't have to come from the property owner. It comes out of the bond proceeds. And really, if you think about, again, if you take a step back, waiving the fees creates a catalyst to speed growth, and it removes a barrier for people so that they can participate and connect to the system. It also sets things to rights. The town, when it created the system the way it is, created a system that couldn't grow and held it small and tight with excessive rates on a small population. By doing the GO bond, by sharing some of the load, by spreading some of those connection fees out so that they don't hit the private property owners, it's almost like the town is going back in time and setting things right so that you're creating a system that'll expand and you're creating some social equity here. And by spreading it across the entire town, the amount of participation required from every property owner is very, very small. It's the best way to hit the reset button and create a system that'll be stable for the future.
Okay, so I'll throw in a second question at you. When you first started your presentation, and when Ron did his first presentation, Ron said that FAN had received about 10 million, and that was in the historical aspect you brought, had received about 10 million already in payment. And in your presentation, you said that we owe FAN roughly 5.0348 million, and that was a $10.8 million bond, if I remember correctly. And somewhere the numbers aren't consistent. I think Ron might be a little more accurate than yours, because in looking at your stuff, I don't think you included the Chino Meadows payments in what you had on that chart.
Well, first off, we haven't paid FAN 10 million.
Right.
We've
Okay.
paid FAN about 5 million, a little over 5 million.
Contractually, we owe him.
Yes,
10
we owe
million.
him 10.8 million for
That
what
was
he's
the
built.
original, yeah, 10.8.
Contractually, that's what we owe him.
And out of the
That's not what we paid
10.8 for the 500,000 gallon a day plant, we owe him $5.034 million more. But we have not paid him 10 million.
Okay,
And-
now,
and-
at
well,
the same
if I may,
time,
If I may, Mr. McCauley, the Chino Meadows project specifically was excluded from any payment going to FAN. FAN, in the original contract, agreed to not take any monies from the buy-in fees of the Chino Meadows folks.
so where'd that money go?
The money didn't go anywhere. It did not go to FAN. It was $1,400 at the time when they first started this
Yeah,
back
it
in
wasn't very high, I
05.
know that.
It was very, very low.
Yeah.
And it was just our normal buy-in fee, but FAN did not get, by contract, he agreed not to take any reimbursement for the plant construction from the Chino Meadows, any of the Chino Meadows folks.
Yeah, because that was all subsidized. Almost all that buy-in by the Chino Meadows people were subsidized. They were given $1,000, a lot of them towards.
No,
Oh, they weren't?
no, there was
Okay.
no subsidy at all. Then I'm
It
just.
wasn't from the town, it was from
Yeah, and I
other-
don't want to, if you want to get into the history of the Chino Meadows project, we can talk about that, but that's kind of not really germane to what we're talking about right now.
Okay. That's a nice thing about being retired. I've got an opportunity to spend some time doing some research and everything like that. And there's a lot of confusion and things like the Chino Meadows project was originally done because of the nitrates in the soil. And ADEQ at that time said, no, there wasn't a problem. And that there's actually, after it was
Well,
done.
That's not correct
Okay.
either, but
Okay,
again,
no, no
we're
more-
not here to
no
talk
further
about the Chino
questions.
Meadows project.
I'll bail out at this point in time.
So your concern with waiving the fees is that we're going to double dip the taxpayer by hitting them with the bond amount as well as the hookup fee?
Well, and it creates resistance to the very purpose of the GO bond. I mean, the very purpose of the economic development project there is to try and encourage development quickly so that our economic engine grows to balance, frankly, the deficit that our residential development represents to us. And so, but that, again, council needs to deliberate over that. They need analysis. They need legal analysis. Council needs to wrestle with that question.
Because if we don't, the residential customer by this sheet is going to get $41 a month amortized to hook up, which is going to raise their monthly
Right.
costs. And if they have to do, or that's on water, on the sewer, it's 61. So Chino Meadows 1 doesn't have that problem because they're already currently on Prescott Water and the sewer system.
Yes, sir.
But anybody new coming in, if they had to do sewer and water,
Well, and that's just it. Anyone new outside of the water and sewer extension map, right there, would have to pay the connection fees. And if you went into Bright Star and you're building a new house out there, you're going to pay connection fees. What we're talking about are connection fees within the water and sewer extension area on 89. And the sole purpose of waiving those connection fees is to encourage economic development on 89, so that we create that spike in development for our local economy.
but on the residences, if we waive it, then they're not getting hit with an extra $40 or $60 a month.
And that would be in this area up here. I think there's, 6 or 8 residences up here.
I forgot what the number is. It's small.
Yeah.
It's primarily along, I forgot the name of that street,
Right.
Westwood.
Yeah, we're not talking town-wide about waiving fees. We're just talking about where we're going to be building new water and sewer lines on 89 with the economic development effort, waiving the fees that are there. But if somebody walks into Bright Star or Highlands Ranch and wants to build a new house, they're paying fees just like everybody else out there.
Or even Parkside Village. I mean, any
Yes, sir.
place that would come onto the town system after the fact. Any place outside of that colored area right there would pay normal buy-in fees.
Did you have something else, Lee?
Yes. The whole purpose of these fees, someone has to pay for all these lines that went in the ground to begin with. That wasn't just a free gratis thing. And so that's how the construction operators or the developer gets repaid by the connection fees. And it's no different here or any other town. It's all the same. And you just have to pay that. That's what it's all about. And that's how I feel about this whole thing. And you're right about getting on 89. Once we get on 89, we can move sewer further one way or the other just from revenue. That's all I've got to say about it.
Thanks, Lee. Mr. Mazie, did you have something?
I had a question for Mr. Gridman.
Get your exercise.
You might as well sit down here.
You're lucky I have the weight to lose.
Now, clarify that the hookup fees do not actually pay for the hookup of the system to the building. That
No.
is to bring the line to
Yes.
the property line,
That's right.
and that's it.
That's right.
So, as a property owner, I would still have to hire a commercial contractor for my commercial property to trench to that system.
Right.
And in the event of some place like Galco, they're gonna have to cut parking lots up, excavate, run the lines, refill the trenches, and resurface their parking lot, which is.
Well, it depends on how we run the sewer main, because we
Right.
may find that it's advantageous to run it in front of Alco and minimize some of those. But yes, you're right. Those are called yard lines.
Yes.
And right now, today, we are not including yard lines in the project. In the Chino Meadows project, we did include the yard lines and the septic tank abandonment in the project. There's a number of different ways of handling it, but right now, today, it's not proposed. We could always bid it as a separate line item that the contractor would still do, that the individual property owners would just pay the contractor directly, but we'll get our economies of scale running and get the prices down as low as they possibly can. There's a number of different ways of handling that, but right now today, those yard lines are not included in here.
Okay, so that's a tremendous cost to the property owner.
Well, I'm not
And
gonna
a lot
say,
of-
I'm not gonna say
comparative
tremendous, but
To a residential property,
no, it'd be probably right, I'm just gonna guess, because we did this throughout the whole Chino Meadows project. And the yard line cost for a residential home is about $1,400. And that's for a residential.
right, that's
So-
not cutting up an asphalt parking lot.
Asphalt's not that expensive, but, but you're right, I mean, there are additional costs,
As
so,
opposed to a front yard.
yeah, you're talking probably $2,000 or $3,000 to run a yard line.
Okay.
And that's approximately about 100 feet, give or take.
Okay.
$2,000 or $3,000 give about 100 foot worth of yard line
All right,
installation.
so I didn't know if anybody on the committee understood that.
No, it's good to clarify it, because that expense is not included in here.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Corey.
So, sorry, Ron.
Come back, Ron, come back.
This $10,000, 6 and 4, just basically puts a valve in the main line.
It puts the pipe in the ground, out in front, on the street, and it gives you a pipe that comes back to your property line. That's what the $6,000 and $4,000 covers for water and sewer.
And you're figuring that the 300 foot of the main line coming through the front of your,
And our pipes are much larger. We put in 12-inch and 8-inch and manholes and everything
Yes.
else, so, yeah, that's all included in that cost, yes.
Do you have something, Mike?
no, I just have to think about it.
Mike, do you have something?
Yeah, we keep talking about a geo bond, but we're glossing over the revenue. Now, looking at the math that was presented on the chart with the red, yellow, and green headers, if we do a straight revenue bond, that's gonna increase the people's cost that use the system by $8. If we go a geo bond, that's gonna increase the entire population of the town of Chino Valley by a minimum of $10. I don't see the equity.
It's not a minimum of 10.
Well, the difference is what's the amount of money that it generates. Basically, if we do a revenue bond, the utility system, it'll take it 5 years to actually start breaking even, which means during that time, we'll have no additional capital money to expand the water and sewer system. So we could do all the projects, all 3 projects with the revenue bond and shift the burden to the users of the system. But the system still will not be in a position where it can grow. It will never have capital, sufficient capital to grow. And really, at the end of that 5 years, we're going to be continuing to raise rates on all the users. So that's I guess, where the inequity is right now, the sewer system is being supported by essentially the poorest members of our community, the poorest areas. And this will continue that burden on them, plus all the other users of the system. So does that answer your question?
And-
Well, it does. It's the benefit and the burden.
Yeah.
You're asking the whole town to take on the burden for the benefit of less than half the population.
But that's not true, because while the water and sewer users benefit from no rate increases, the rest of the town, the entire town, benefits from a local government that can take care of its roads, a local government that is adding to its local economy and creating more retail and commercial choices in town, and a local government that's receiving enough tax income from sales tax to take care of its capital needs beyond roads, like rolling stock, capital asset replacement, equipment replacement, and if necessary, strict capital replacement, which is structures. So there are things that come out of the GEO bond proceed or the project that do benefit the whole town, not just the water and sewer users.
And that's kind of what's bothering me, because it seems like we're hiding things in here. I think we should go for a straight water and sewer revenue, and that'll take care of the water and the sewer, and the town can still grow. And if we need additional funding, then we do a GEO bond for the additional funding for roads and equipment. So it's separate and people know what they're paying for.
Well, the revenue bond track does not empower the town to grow. The revenue bond track will add some additional users to the system, but the revenue bond track will not have the capital improvement dollars in it to allow those systems to expand. And if you go to a GEO bond for streets, you will be borrowing money over a 20-year period to pay for something that lasts 10 years. And that doesn't make sense.
But that's what we're doing here.
No, you're going to the GEO bond to create economic development that's going to pay for itself and then some. You're going to the GEO bond to put some pipe in the ground that's going to last 30 or 40 years, that's going to create business development and generate those general fund tax dollars you need to fix your roads.
But wouldn't the revenue bond do the exact same thing?
It
for the
will
sewer and
not.
water?
It will not.
Is it gonna put the same pipes in the ground?
The revenue bond would allow you to put the pipes in the ground, but you will not have any capital dollars left over for at least a 5-year period to invest in expanding the system. So you're almost right back where you started if you do the revenue
I
bond.
guess I'm confused because I thought that was the purpose of this entire exercise, to expand the system.
It is, and that's why staff came up with the GEO bond
But it's,
proposal.
again, repeating myself, it seems like there's a lot of hidden costs in there. It's gonna be used for other things that aren't identified.
Like what?
Roads, capital improvement and equipment and such as that.
No,
That's-
the GEO bond will not have money in it for roads. The GEO bond will have money in it to put pipe in the ground so businesses can be here and generate taxes.
Let's, Joe, Mike,
I'm sorry.
doing a revenue bond, will the revenue bond be able to pay back the general fund of the money that it's zapped out of it since 2006?
No. If we
So without that money, you can't do the other things. It's not that the revenue money is going to dump into the roads fund. It's the
Oh, I
fact
know the
that,
revenue money's
but
not gonna
so
dump.
it's not hidden. It's totally separate.
I'm saying it's the other way around. The GEO bond has the hidden money. in
It does not either. It still has, it makes the sewer, the utility account whole so that it can start by state statute paying back the general fund so that the general fund has money to do the roads. They're completely separate.
Yeah, because currently the utility fund owes the general fund $1.4 million. Once the utility fund is on its feet, making money, it'll start paying back the general fund those dollars. But it'll also eliminate the subsidy that we're giving the utility funds every year. Over the next 5 years, we projected that's another $1.2 million. So if we do nothing, in 5 years, the utility fund's gonna owe the general fund $2.5 million, which that money could have been used on roads.
And much higher rates.
So basically, what we're doing is we're getting utility funds stable, profitable. They will make money and have sufficient funds to continue to extend the water and sewer system, and we'll eliminate that subsidy that we're giving the utility funds every year in the general fund, that then we can budget to do roads and general fund capital improvements and whatever, from there. So right now, the utility funds are sucking money every year
Right.
off the general fund. We're cutting that off, and then the utility fund can start paying it back. Now, at the rate we pay it back, well, we'll see. I mean, the council will make that determination each year during the budget. They may only pay back $100,000 a year over 10 years or 14 years. But whatever, at least some of the money can start going back, and we can start planning on improving our roads and paying down this, this huge wave of road maintenance that we're not even being able to touch at this point. So,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
And going with what you were saying there, when the EPA, the federal government, brought up this issue in Chino Meadows, they didn't come over to Chino Meadows and say, you all need to fix this. They came to the town of Chino Valley, which is, as a whole, you got a problem, you need to fix it. And at what point in the future are they going to come back and say, you didn't do enough, you need to do more? And I would rather be prepared for that and be ahead of it than behind it and back in this boat in 10 years. So just a thought.
Okay. I've got
Go,
my head
Corey.
wrapped around this now.
Get after it.
I would suggest that as we start coming to a consensus here, that I'm against any hookup fees at all, not only in the beginning, but on down the road. If, as a property owner, I'm going to start paying for the water and sewer as soon as this is passed. If it's 10 years before it comes to my neighborhood, I will have already spent $10,000 towards the system. Now, the not charging it to the people that are going to be immediately hooked up to it, yes, they're going to kind of get a $10,000 bonus right from the start. But again, they're 10 years down the road, they will have also paid in to then pay back what it costs them. That way, we're helping the ones that aren't hooked up to it, are helping the ones that are hooked up to it immediately. The ones that are hooked up to it immediately will eventually help pay back. Is that?
And I agree with you on that. When you said that, I thought that's where you were going. And, if we pay 10 years and I don't see water and sewer at my business for 10 or 15 years, I've paid a chunk of change in.
Is that sounding right, Ron? As far as, because if we were to put water and sewer throughout the whole town, all of a sudden, bam, well then yes, everybody needs to come up with their 10,000 immediately because they need to pay for that pipe going in front of their place, and then they're still responsible to hook up to it themselves. That then makes sense.
So what's your question? I didn't hear a question.
Is what I'm saying sound right?
Because the short answer is no. But the committee can recommend whatever they want to. This is going to be a council decision. Because as I said, what goes into the buy-in fee is not only the pipe in the ground, but your capacity at either the plant or a well, and the tank distribution system, everything else. So by waiving the entire fee, what you're doing is, again, all we would do is we would go back to Mr. Jackson and have him do an analysis that has no buy-in fees, but what do you have to set your revenues now, your revenue analysis, your monthly bill, at in order to cover these future costs of plant expansions and so on. Because that's not the way our system is set up right now.
But you can look at just a normal tax model. There are plenty of people that live in Chino Valley that pay taxes for something that they get no benefit from. There are tons of seniors here that pay school taxes every year. It's part of being part of the town where you decide you want to live in a community that's going to do certain things, and you participate in supporting those. Some people don't get a direct benefit. I haven't had the police come provide service to me at my home, but if we had a tax here that supported the police department, that's the way that goes. So I hear what you're saying about paying taxes and not getting what you deem to be a tangible benefit at your yard line. But there is something to be said for those taxes going towards bringing more businesses, more jobs, a better community, roads that you can drive on.
Well, I think to assume that I'm still going to be paying my $105 a month for nothing, other than yes, I am contributing to the town, and I think that's what we're gonna have to go to the public with, is just exactly what you're saying. You need to start paying now. Eventually, it'll come back around to you, and it should come back around to you in not only a sewer and water when it comes into your area, but it will have already then benefited the economic development of the town, which could even make that cost lower as time goes on. And I think that's a good selling point, and I think everybody has a civic duty to do that. But to have to pay twice, you know, you're kind of asking a bit much, that I paid in my 10,000 over 10 years, and now you want me to pay another 10,000 when it decides to come down my street. That's not sounding very appealing.
10,000, in 10 years, it'll be 20,000.
Mr. Dave.
I'd like to bring one more thing up. No,
Stay there.
You're supposed to, but they can't hear you at home. Yeah, if I gotta walk up here, you know.
When a well is abandoned, the town of Chino Valley will receive a 1/4 acre foot of water credit per year.
Well, it's an assured water supply.
Right.
So we will get a 1/4 acre foot for each abandoned exempt well.
So
Yes.
that will go into the portfolio of the town, which we need to build
Yes.
rapidly and expand it a lot.
Yeah.
It's in desperate need. Okay, so there is a cash value to that 1/4 acre a foot. When Prescott Valley was selling their affluent water, it was $28,000 for an acre foot. So that tells me that a 1/4 acre foot should be worth at least $7,000.
In today's, if I may, in today's market, because when Prescott Valley did that sale, it was back in 08, 09, somewhere in there. Today's market for an acre foot of water, assured water supply, is about $8,000 to $9,000. So, you know, you can do the same math, but yes, you're right, there's value to that. Yes.
So I, as a property owner, when I abandon my well for this system, am giving that 1/4 acre foot credit to the town.
Yes.
And as part of the offset for a hookup fee, in my opinion. Okay.
That goes into some of the logic as to why it is good and proper for the areas that are highlighted here. That is one of the advantages. But remember, though, we don't require that the commercial properties to abandon their wells. It could easily be made a recommendation of the council that if you're going to get this buy-in fee waived, then yes, you will agree to abandon your well. But then the town will get a 1/4 of an acre foot per exempt well. So yes, that is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? Anything else, Lee?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I'm just waiting for the end of the program so we can take care of this.
Final thoughts? Haven't heard from you much.
I'm just listening.
Just listen. Anything else?
Well, I hate to say this, but I'm a firm believer that the system should go down more by the hotel down there. I think the going into Perkinsville Road out there is more designed to go out and help Lennar Homes. It's going to be building out west of town eventually, and they're the one I think that are paying to put the pipe underneath the road there at Perkinsville for the extension through there, and not 100% for the businesses. And Robert had mentioned that where the property was and everything like that, and I go back to where, being retired, I can do some research. And this outfit that's out there is multiple layers of corporations through Delaware, Florida, all over the place, in California. And, I don't know who Robert's been dealing with out of Scottsdale, but, this is what my problem is on this. I think we need the water and sewer at 89. But I don't think Perkinsville is the right place.
You anything else, bud?
No, I'm a pass.
You good? Mike?
No, I'm just, I'm concerned about the excessive cost of the bond to do things that are not associated with the water and sewer.
Anything else, Corey?
No, do we need to just start at the top and putting our vote
Well,
down?
since you all don't have anything, I have final thoughts.
All right.
You go, Gary.
My turn. In being on this committee since last year and going through this once, and now with 4 new members since we, through attrition, had lost 4, and looking back all the way from the start of this, as we've gone around with it, it's really important to understand that the town of Chino Valley is the entire town. It's not the council, it's not the staff, it's all of us as a group, or we would be living in the county, which some of us do, but have businesses here. You choose where you live. If we didn't like it here, we'd be living in Prescott Valley. That's not a choice I made. I like it out here, and I take whatever comes with that. Since being here since '82, I have watched this place go along when it only had dirt roads and very little business out here. So I've watched it for a long time. And in thinking about that, I can only think of just a few other people, Mr. Mazie and probably Mr. Lon Turner, that have been here probably longer than I have, or at least as long. And so in that, you know, it is a community. And so when our residents vote on a decision, it's the same as a council making a vote. So if we put this out to the voters, they're making the same decisions that the 7 people that normally sit up here do. And I don't think we can take that away from them. And as a town, we're responsible for all of it. If we had to put the sewer plant in, or we chose to put the sewer plant in, or however it came to be, we're responsible for it, all of us, not just the 1,000 people that live in that area. And I don't think that system was ever meant to just those 1,000 people and that's it. It can't. How can you sustain that much debt with that few people? We don't do that in our businesses. Corey doesn't go out and ask for $20 million on his business. He knows what he can afford. He stays within that. So I find it hard to believe that the original idea was to have this contained in a small area. This has been going on since 2005. So as the town manager knows, with some of the Cortez lawsuit, that was one that hung around forever and ever and ever and ever. It's time to put some of these things to issue and quit kicking them down the street, because we can only kick them so far. We cannot let those neighborhoods struggle and burden that debt. Me being down at 5 South, I'm not going to see sewer and water for a long time, and I'm going to pay in for it, as we talked about, for a long time. But to help my fellow citizens out, I'll do it. It's going to cost me several $100s a year for the next however many years until it does hit. Got to do it. It's for the good of the community, not me personally. In looking at that debt, we've got to do something with FAN. FAN did not come in there to just have the economy tank and not get anything, so it's not fair to him either. And that's why the town manager has done what he's done, to try to work something out so that it's fair to us, it's fair to him, and keep those relationships built. Fan Construction is doing our road expansion right now, so they are a partner in the community and have been for a long time. With everything we've talked about, what we've seen is this utility has drained the general fund. It can no longer do that. We have to have those things in the general fund to pay for the things that they were meant for, which is, as we said before, the police, the senior center, the swimming pool, the roads, whatever it is that the town provides. And so we need to get those funds back in there. By state statute, we have to pay that back. We can't ignore it. We can't just stick our head in the hole as an ostrich and hope that it goes away. We've done that for too many years. Something's got to change here. The other point is the cost of the public, which I think Mr. Duffy did an excellent job of getting this. I don't think we've had a total package. This, I hopefully gave you guys a much better understanding of what it's going to cost the individual person. The other thing to point out that I talked to town manager about was this 400 feet from the property lines. That is something that's within council's decision. Originally, they said 400 feet from the property line. They've kicked around 400 feet from the septic. I think that helps. not impact as many people, to be hard and fast property line, that's it. So I'm glad that they're looking at that, and I hope that they continue. As we found tonight, there are a lot of things that are within the council's decision-making process to make adjustments. So I would hope that whatever recommendation we give to them, they keep those in mind and absolutely look at those. Just as historical, the last committee, when Bud and Carrie and myself with the other 4 members, when this went to a vote, the revenue bond was never in the picture. We looked at it, and it wasn't something that we saw as a benefit. This time around, we got much more information about the individual costs, which we didn't have last time. And I know, Bud, that was kind of a sticking point for you last time, because you can't feel comfortable with it unless you've got, and we just got a few more points from Mr. Mazie tonight, which is important to understand that there are some additional costs. And that was my hopes with Mr. Duffy's deal and having people like Mr. Mazie here so that we get all of those pieces, parts. The last time we got hung up, and as we kind of are now, because some of us have mentioned the 1 South area, that was kind of the sticking point last time because it was the whole town. We were going from north to south and trying to figure out what was going to fit and what was not. So in looking at this, the staff has recommended essentially the same thing that the committee did last time. The committee last time voted to go from 3 North to Center Street, and that consisted of 1A, 2, and 3. The town staff has recommended more or less the 1A and the 2 version and not necessarily going into the 3, which was from 2 North to Center. So some numbers that you may not be aware of, just for you all to know, as I looked it up from when we did this last time. If you look at the road 3 North to 2 North, there are 88 occupied sewer pieces of property there that could hook up to the sewer. You've got 48 vacant sewer properties sitting there waiting to hook to sewer at whatever time those vacant lots, they decide to do something with them. You have 69 occupied water users that will hook up to that, and you have 45 vacant water properties in that same section. If you compare that to the Road 2 North to Center Street, which was Area 3, you only have 42 occupied sewer compared to the previous 88, 23 vacant compared to the previous 48, and that was sewer properties. The 39 occupied water compared to the 69 occupied water, and 23 vacant water properties compared to the 45. So that northern area is got way more properties in it that will be immediate users. And I look at that, if you look where majority of the restaurants are, 3 to 2 North, and the restaurants are the ones that really need the sewer the most. From talking to different people, they're pumping their septics all the time. They just have too much volume. It's just a real pain for them. On the flip side, if you look at the apartments at 3 South, there's a lot of use. Somebody told me that they have several septic tanks pumping them all the time. So there is a need throughout the town, absolutely, but what the staff has identified has way more properties immediately than maybe some of the other areas, so just food for thought. In closing with that, to me, this is a chance to be proactive instead of reactive. Everything we've done has been reactive to a problem. Town manager is very aware of that. For the last 2 years, that's all he's dealt with is reactive. This is our chance to do something proactive for our community instead of waiting for the state or the federal government to say, hey, you got a problem, you need to do it. And then be back in this boat again, as I said before. In anything that we decide to do tonight, there's a risk. If we decide to do nothing, there's a risk. We decide to do part of it, we decide to do all of it. We're not going to get away from that. So we would hope that we make the best recommendation to the council and hope that the council does the best they can to bring the right decision. Time will tell, but we have to do something. In this process, the professionals have made their conservative projections, and they are projections. There's no guarantees. Mr. Mazie will love to see the economy have an issue because it's good for his business, but you know, we don't know what's going to happen. And so we just got to do the best we can. And as part of that, we've been kind of hung up. There's nothing we can do about FAN and the Prescott water system unless the bond goes forward, because it's going to take the bond to finalize those. So we got to keep that in mind, that everything cannot be absolute. There are still many, many steps with this committee, the council, the public, whatever it is. The council has the next vote on this, and then hopefully, ultimately, the town citizens will have the ultimate say on this issue. The decision that we need to do this stuff now, as Robert was saying, hit the reset button to fix the past mistakes. We can't continue them. We can't perpetuate that. We need to correct this action the best we can. This is not simply a project. This is community. This is putting our community on the right track for everybody, not just special interest groups or anything like that. It's the well-being of the community. And I would hope that as a benefit, we get some businesses that can create some jobs in the town so that our people have to quit driving so far away. And that would be just the icing on the cake, I guess, if we can perpetuate that forward. Because the immediate is to help the people that are burdened with the rates they're burdened, which are going to continue to get worse for the next several years, but also to continue the services for the streets, police, recreation, swimming pool, whatever it is. So that's my thoughts on it. Mr. Lee, you have anything further? Are you still there, Lee? He's ready to get to business. You ready to get to business? It's yours. What do you got?
For what's that? I'm sorry.
You got a recommendation? You got a direction?
Do we need to just start from the top and get a vote on the bond?
The first one, as we did last time, would be to whether to recommend this to council. The second part would be to agree on the amount that the bond should be for. And then the third part would be a recommendation to where the project should occur, or with Mike Edmonds, or a recommendation to do revenue bond, whatever direction you all want to take.
Who's going?
I'll start with, I make a recommendation to go with the GEO bond.
And so that would be your motion to recommend that we go forward with a general obligation bond to the council?
Yes.
Do I have a second? Corey has motion that we recommend to the town council to go to general obligation bond. Bud has seconded that. Any discussion? Mike?
I was just curious, do we get to, the rest of us get to talk, or are we just gonna vote now?
Right now.
Okay, thank you.
This is talk time.
I've been through this process, I did miss one meeting. The dollar figures, to me, are not solid. I think it needs to be done. I think a revenue bond is the most cost-effective way for the town to accomplish their goal. And if they need to seek additional funding, then they need to seek a general obligation bond for another project. I think there's a lot of stuff that appears to be built into this that is unaccounted for. The roads, we keep talking about roads, we keep talking about paying money back. It needs to be done, but I'm not sure that a general obligation bond is the most cost-effective way to do it.
If you don't do it, then you won't pay it back, as the figures that they have set. So at what point, if we don't pay back the general fund, are we going to be able to do anything, including keep the police department, senior center, or anything else open?
I understand that, but I think there's too much money on the table here for this project.
If I can make a run at this, this is strictly for the sewer and water. And if we get the sewer and water in place, the business of the town will pick up, and the revenue that's made from the businesses picking up, that revenue is what is gonna go for the streets. Nothing in this GEO bond is for
And as you say on that, Corey, and if that does happen, it gives us the opportunity to possibly reduce our sales tax so that we can come more in line with Prescott and Prescott Valley sales tax.
Well, because
I hear you.
Okay.
Gary?
Go ahead, Carrie.
if I may maybe clarify, the way I'm looking at it is we're robbing Peter to pay Paul right now. And that's only going to last so long. So the whole purpose of all this is to save this town. For you, for me, for everybody in it. I'm with him. I'm way down. It's not going to phase my commercial property for many years. But the way I look at it, if the rest of it comes, it's going to pay me in revenue by my clientele I'm going to grow. Just like anybody else. The more people we have here, the more revenue we're going to get, the more we can, the small businesses, large businesses, people here, everybody's going to stay here. They're not going to go into Prescott. They're not going to go into Prescott Valley. They're going to be proud of Chino Valley and spend their money here, which is the only way Chino Valley makes money is by their sales tax. So I feel no matter if us way down there have to spend extra money, it's worth every penny because I feel I'm going to get it in tenfold because my business will flourish. And it's the future of this town. If we don't do anything, I'm not going to have a business to have. We're not going to have people here. It's something I feel that we're in desperate need of. That's just my opinion.
And I would say, Mike, I understand your point, revenue. I understand. I would like to do it for as cheap as possible as well. If we could make that goal, it'd be great. But in the meantime, those users, their rates are going to continue to go up, so we're not helping them at all. I mean, so,
Well,
go ahead.
just ultimately, it's a voter issue. This is it's gonna clear, it's gonna go through council, it's gonna go on the ballot. So the ultimate decision makers here are gonna be the people that live in Chino Valley. So I just
Right on.
want to throw that out.
Go ahead,
Right.
Robert.
Excuse me again. No, I'm going to vote in favor of going with a GO bond. I am going to go on record, though, of being strongly, very strongly against where it's going. I really disagree with it, and I know Gary came up with the numbers, but if you look at this area here, it all runs downhill. We already have pipes to the highway. At Center Street, we have pipes to the highway at the hotel. So if the future development, we're going to have to run pipes from 1 East all the way to Perkinsville and then through there. So that's an additional expense. And that's my opinion. But I do recommend going to the voters with this because, once again, like Mike said, they're the ultimate decision on this. And let the town do what they think is best. And hopefully, it goes the right way, whatever way that might be.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Right. I'm only going to say this because I was so with you last time I was in this group.
Yeah.
I wanted it further down also. But having all those experts come in, including Scott, showing us that putting businesses bulk together helps it grow quicker, and then you can work your way down. We have a lot of land through those two that could really grow, that could give us the money to start extending it down further so we can get it. I was with you,
Yeah.
but I've really changed my
Well,
mind
I-
this
I-
time with all the experts we had in here. I think it's really going to benefit this town by growing them and keeping the Safeway, the Alcos, the McDonald's, all them going and bringing the competition in next to them.
The thing is, what was brought out at the last meeting was the fact that one of the experts mentioned the fact that if it's within a 5-mile distance, which our town is just barely 5 miles long, because from Road 3 to Road 2 north is what, 2 miles? Mile and a half, something like that. Then you go down to Center, it's another half mile. So that's 2 miles. You do the same thing going the other way. So using the analysis that they gave, that no matter where we go on it, they're grouping together if they come to town here. A lot of these don't want to be right across the street from each other. Car dealerships, yeah, they like to be right across the street because if you go out looking for a car and you don't know for sure what you're getting, and they're going to sit there and try to give you the best deal.
Have you been down Willow Creek lately in Prescott?
Yeah, the car dealerships.
No, not car dealerships.
How
The
many
fast
grocery
foods.
stores are there?
the fast foods. There's a McDonald's, KFC, Taco Bell, they're all right there. They're just one, two, three,
No, not in shopping centers, right on the main drag,
Right on the
each
main
individual
drag.
buildings.
they're right next to each other.
And I understand your point, because I originally thought the same thing, why are we not down by the motel? But
Right.
when you look at that area, you look at all the vacant property, which is good potential, but that potential could be years and years down the road because they don't want to take the first step. We have current businesses up on this end, immediate right now, and let that come as it comes. But
Yeah,
I thought about it as
I
well.
recommend putting it on the ballot, even though I wanted to be going on the record that I was against location.
Okay. Anybody else? Lee, you have anything?
I think he fell asleep.
I think he fell asleep.
Are you there, Lee? He gave up. Anything else on this before we take a vote? Robert, did you have?
I was just going to speak, when Dan Jackson ran the numbers on the different areas last year, we were looking at, where do you get the bang for your buck? The number of existing businesses that would connect on the north end supplies a significant cash flow immediately to the utilities. And that's a huge benefit because it's a direct injection of funds every year from those users. And that would be missing if we went into a pretty much vacant area.
Yeah, Robert, how are we doing on Fan and Prescott Water and Will Hoyt and all that? Are we?
Yes, sir.
Are we coming close?
We are. I'm scheduled to have the agreement in front of council for Mr. Fan in June. And it's my goal to have that provisional settlement agreement approved by both sides before the, if this does go to a bond election, the PAC emerges and starts doing its educational development. Likewise with Prescott Water, we have our attorneys working with their attorneys. There's a very narrow list of deal points that have to be satisfied. The draft just this week hit my desk. We're going to be talking with Prescott about making sure that all the deal points that they're sensitive to are dealt with in that draft so that we can bring it to council in June. So yes, sir, our goal is to have both of those documents in council's hands prior to the PAC engaging their educational efforts, so we can say to the people of Chino Valley, this is going to a bond issue, and if you vote for the bond issue, these things will be executed and taken care of.
Okay, that's kind of what I wanted to know. And the only other thing that I have is the hookup fees. I think we ought to hook up for free.
Shall we, we're gonna go on down the step?
We'll take a vote on this first.
Yeah.
Robert, can you see if Lee is still there? Because we really need him to vote. You might have to
think he dropped off.
just make sure he's there.
Lee, are you there? I may dial him back. I'm gonna dial him back.
He's in the bathroom. He took a big step.
I think he may have dropped off.
You know what, Gary, can I say something I didn't hit while he's doing that?
Sure.
One thing, we were talking about just businesses, but I also feel that as a homeowner,
There?
Hey, Lee, I'm sorry we dropped you. Are you back? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think your phone just dropped off because it just told me I had lost signal for a minute, so.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
We'll keep you on the line.
That's all right, I'm right here.
Go ahead, Carrie.
we have to forget about homeowners can see home values go up if we grow and we do things correctly all the way into the future. So homeowners are going to see a benefit from this. Even though my business is here in Chino, my home is in Quail Ridge, which is county, but it's still the values even in county are going to go up. So, you know, it's a win-win, honestly, for every homeowner and business in the town, I feel.
We got you back, Lee.
I'm right here.
Well, you dropped off Corey made a motion to take the bond to the town council. Bud has seconded it. We've been discussing it. Do you have anything further before we take a vote to recommend this to council?
No, I think it should go to council though.
That's your vote, huh?
That's my vote.
Anybody got anything else?
This, I've been in business for 45 years, and I've dealt with all these things, and what we're trying to do here is exactly what has to be done in this town, or this town's going to die. And I know there's some people that don't think they should have to pay a share of the tax for the bond. That's just part of life, and you're going to have it in any town you go to or any county. But no, I vote yes to go to council.
Anything further from anybody else?
That's all I have.
Thanks, Lee. So the motion to refer this to council to go to general obligation bond, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This recommendation will go forth to go to bond. Second item, Corey, do you want to start as far as dollar amount
Do we need
suggested
to
by
do an
council?
amount? Is that right, Robert? Do we need to go with an amount?
You can recommend an amount to council. I believe the amount that's in the Stifle Mark Reader report totaled up to $13.5 million.
Is that all from general obligation?
That's all general obligation.
Seven,
bonds.
13.7.
Was it 13.7?
Or should we just leave that up to the council? Because that way is negotiating, because if we put they put a limit on it, let's face it, there's some buying and dealing yet to be done.
It's
Well,
13.5.
It's 13.5. We've recommended to go to council for bond, so if you don't want to put a dollar amount, you could just, that we recommend to go with staff's recommendation.
I recommend we go with staff's recommendation on the amount that the council can deal with.
Second.
Corey has motion to recommend to council to go with staff's recommendation for the project amount. As it is in the report, 13.5 million, but the motion is just to go with that staff recommendation, seconded by Mike. Any discussion on that item? No discussion. All in favor of Corey's motion to refer this to town council as staff's recommendation for the project amount? Aye. Opposed? And the last thing would be if we are going to follow staff's recommendation for the area of the 89 project.
I make a motion, we accept staff's recommendation of extending the sewer and water to between Road 2 North and Road 3 North.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on Corey's motion? No discussion. All of those in favor of recommending town council to do the 89 project between 3 North and 2 North?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So all three of those recommendations will be forwarded to town council next Tuesday, correct?
The next Tuesday.
Now, can we go ahead and do a couple of the little particular things as well? As in, I make a motion that we have no hookup fees through this. So motion's made. Do we want to discuss?
Well,
Second?
no hookup fees
At all.
to just this project in the future.
For the original people affected as well as future.
I don't know that we can control that.
Do we have a second?
Aye, I second.
Okay, now you can discuss. Go ahead, Bud.
I don't know that we can control that though, because you're talking about not charging any fees for just this project or projects beyond that.
As we move down 89, you mean?
I think that we need to have existing and non-existing, as far as hookups. And the reason why is, again, if so many of us are paying for year upon year upon year, when it ends up being in front of our place, I don't want to know about having to come up with another $10,000. Now, you do have somebody that moves in year 9, 1 year before it comes down our street, they have not paid in.
They've paid tax on the vacant property.
They pay tax on the vacant property, which is still a fraction of
Is
what
a
I did
fraction.
for a developed piece.
Go ahead. As I say, any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Chair. The connection fees run with the land. So, and we have had people move in here who didn't realize, or their title company didn't catch it, and they closed on their home, and they went over to Public Works to get hooked up to water and sewer or start their account, and all of a sudden there's this additional fee they have to pay that's amortized out. I get it that you want to personalize that because you're here for a long period of time, but it runs with the land. So if you connected to water and sewer and you did the amortization and you moved out the next year and you just made one payment, the rest of that fee gets paid by whoever the next person is that comes in. I get that there's a lot of complexity to this issue because you have the people who have been here a long time and the people who've not, the existing buildings and the vacant land. There's a lot to be evaluated here. It's not going to be an easy thing for council to consider. There's a lot of complexity there. But I do think that the thought of can we consider a way to alleviate these fees needs to be asked. And that evaluation does need to occur because it could really enrich the GEO bond project. So, from a staff perspective, there's a whole slew of technical issues and legal issues that have to be discussed within that topic area. But the conversation needs to happen at the council, I mean.
Can I add one thing to this?
Go ahead, Lee.
You know, I own a business, I paid hookup fees. I own a home, I paid hookup fees. So I've invested quite an amount of money already, and now I'm going to pay on the tax bond. So what's the difference of me paying for this service 7 or 8 years ago versus someone else paying for it today and still paying for the bond? It's no different.
I think those are some of the legal issues that the town's gonna have to get over, because from what I understand, the whole Chino Meadows was handled very poorly, in respect to that.
And I did forget to mention, and I apologize, Chair, shortly after I got here, the mandatory connection fee was partially discussed by council, and in general, the question was, do we have to charge this? And at the time, the town of Chino Valley still had an outstanding list of people who had not paid and connected along extension lines. There was a council committee assigned to study that task. They looked at that task for well over 6 months. The ultimate conclusion was, yes, the policy as it's written has to stand. But that does not apply to all confined projects like a general obligation bond. And so the discussion and the consideration of all of the little intricacies needs to occur. Council needs to go through it. There's a lot there.
Can I then change my motion, or do we need to vote that down? And what I'm thinking is do we come up with a motion along the lines of, we want to make council aware of the hookup fees and take these things into consideration.
You can amend that motion however you would like.
Did I just do that okay?
So how do you want to amend it?
Do I have to say it again?
Well, I mean, you're doing this for fees all in the future, so what do you want to amend that to? Just to this project, just,
Just in reference to what the water and sewer system
Or-
is going to develop in Chino Valley?
or just to the,
Don't you think you can put just for this project on this?
or do you want to just
No,
motion
because
that we refer to council that
We're
this
looking
needs?
at it affecting until the GO bond is paid for.
With your original motion?
Yeah.
Corey, would you be more concerned with just this project or any other projects that might come along? Because using, once again, your place as an example, it might be in a project 4 or 5 years down the road that was generated from income from this project. Or
That's
4 or
why I
5,
It
double or
needs to be
triple that.
tied to the sewer and water, you know, future expansion of the sewer and water.
How about the length of the bond?
The what's that?
How about
The length of the
The
bond.
length of the bond. Can we, Robert, can we do that? Can we put
You
on this
can-
for
you-
the, until the length of the bond is out and then?
You guys can make
Well, I know that,
whatever,
but I mean,
whatever recommendation you want to. I think it would be legitimate to say, take a look at the bond. Is it feasible to waive fees or not? If it is, please include that in the bond. Take a look at our operation outside of the bond. Is it feasible to waive fees under normal circumstances? Within the bond, it's almost like you've got this finite project with a tight line around it. You can change the inside of that however you like. But I understand what Corey's saying. He's concerned about the future. And even though people are paying for 20 years, the connections that would be waived are on a finite number of properties within that project area. So you could word it to ask council to evaluate and review both sides of that coin. You know, the GO bond project side as well as just continued normal operation of the utility. Is it possible to waive those fees? I mean, you can ask for both. They've looked at it before, but they could look at it again.
So what do you want to do with it?
Then we'll amend my original motion so that council considers waiving the fees for both the immediate people to be hooked up and future users of our system as well.
So just a recommendation for them to evaluate that and,
I think they're plenty aware of, you
yeah,
know,
evaluate it and,
of evaluating it that way.
and look at both sides of it
look
and
at both sides.
figure out what's best. Okay. So Corey has made amendment. Does anybody second that amendment?
I do.
Bud has seconded. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment to refer this to council to consider waiving the fees either during this project or in the future?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The amendment passed. Say that again, Lee.
I abstain, no?
Okay. Thank you. That amendment is passed now to the original motion that is still on the table to go ahead and refer this to council about the fees, since Corey defined that a little better. It's a little more broad with the amendment. All in favor of the original motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So I take it that was a unanimous on that? Those 4 recommendations will be referred to council. If there is anything else, any other recommendations to council or thoughts? Anything, town manager?
I would just like to say, we have seen this committee plow through a tremendous amount of information, and staff appreciates your work and your thoughtful deliberation on it. It's been incredible watching the committee do such a Herculean effort. Thank you.
And yes. You were saying something. And I would say, after being the chair of this for a year, thanking you all, we all obviously had varying opinions, but keeping it respectful, and that was what our hope was, is that we got all those varying opinions. And even from Mr. Mazie being here and some of the other public in the past, we thank you for your participation. It helped us tremendously to get an entire picture, not just a very pointed rate fee, which is kind of what happened last time. So thank you very much.
Would I just like,
Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to parrot what the chair said. It's important that we get all sides out on the table so everybody can hear them. And that's what we tried to do as a committee, to get everything on the table. Thank you.
And that's what I'm saying, that's what I appreciate. Corey has brought things, you have brought things, Bud has, Robert has, Carrie has, so we've all had our part, as well as, like I said, everybody in the audience. And thank you and your staff for bringing us everything that we've asked for to try to get that package put together. We appreciate it.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Lee, we're adjourned.